I believe we are live here, but I'm waiting for confirmation. We are live. Adam Israel, hello. This is Dan D. Federicis of Saratoga Report. This is the Saratoga Podcast. I'm here with my friend Adam Israel. Robin Dalton has a personal conflict today, so she cannot join us. Adam, how you doing on this beautiful last day of summer, I believe?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Looking for sweater weather. Looking forward to it. I already have an idea for my Halloween costume picked out. But more importantly, I think we are at, officially in campaign season now. Signs are going up. The candidates are going at it, and I think that's what we want to talk about today, right, Dan?
Yeah, you're right. Summer was a lull in politics. Thank God, right? I think we all needed that break. The week after Labor Day, things started trickling in, but still not at a higher gear. It's already in fourth gear. These campaigns, it seems, starting this week. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. And I think it's going to get to fifth quickly. But one of the races, it's a three-way race that's pretty active right now, is the race for the Commissioner of Public Safety. Right now, it's held by Jim Montanino, a Democrat. He's the incumbent. He is running again. He is, if I understand, he is supported by the Democratic Committee and Party, but he is not endorsed by the Democrats on the city council. They have endorsed Kristen Dart, an independent, on her bid for city council for the Department of Public Safety. And then the third Republican, he's on the registered Democrat, newly registered Democrat, but a Democrat on the Republican line, ex-FBI agent Tim Cole. And I think Tim's who we want to talk about today because he has a very interesting past with his service in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Dan, is that correct?
Yes, and you and I will we will disclose that I don't have any role in Tim Cole's campaign or anything, but I am a supporter. My heart's with him. I hope he wins. I'll be voting for him, and I want to put. The reason I'm putting it out there just to disclose that so people know that I do think Tim Cole is by far the best candidate in this race. But with that being said, we're having Tim Cole on this week. We've already invited Kristen Dart, one of his opponents, to be on next week. That we don't know if she's able to come on, but we already invited her for that because we want to be as fair as we can. We've had Jim Montanino on here at least twice in the past, and perhaps during campaign season we even get him on here one time. But today, to kind of tee it up here a little bit, this is kind of a hot issue, as you outlined, Adam. And the reason it's really a hot issue today is because tonight, I believe at 7 p.m. at Cafe Lena, there will be a documentary shown that purports to show how the FBI and Tim Cole allegedly set up some Muslims on some significant arrests, which were quite a long time ago, regarding terrorism. And we're going to have Tim on to explain that a little more. There's going to be a documentary tonight. And then following the documentary, as I understand it, there's going to be a panel discussion afterwards. And Tim Cole, to his credit, I'd say 19 out of 20 political candidates in his positions would steer clear of Cafe Lena tonight. Tim Cole, to his credit, said, I want to be there and I want to be on the panel. And they declined his request to be on the panel. They apparently offered to give him 3 to 5 minutes, according to an article in yesterday's Times Union. Adam, anything else you want to add before we do bring Tim in?
Yeah. Just a little quick background about all this, because the more I look into it, the more fascinating it is that in 2002, and I'll let Tim really dive into this, but he worked for the FBI. And they worked with a Muslim informant to secure convictions against 2 other Muslims in the Albany community who were sentenced for essentially trying to buy a Stinger missile. They were sentenced to 15 years. That sentence was then held by an appeals court. So Tim Cole, after 2000, the September 11th or the September 11th attacks, working in our federal bureau, went out and secured convictions against potential terrorists. And so this is something I think that's interesting, because it then leads where the newest kind of nuance to all this was the Schoharie limo crash. This family that worked with, that was an informant for Mr. Cole, was part of that family that owned that limo company. So I think we should bring him on to do a better job of explaining than I do. But I just wanted to explain the gravity of everything that's going on here, because there's a lot of moving parts.
Okay, well stated. Okay, folks, let's. Tim Cole, again, he's a retired FBI agent, currently running for public safety commissioner. Lives here, obviously, in Saratoga Springs. Tim, welcome to the Saratoga Podcast.
Oh, good afternoon. Nice to see you, Dan. Nice to see you, Adam. Thanks for having me on the program.
Hey, have we had you on this program before? I don't recall.
I first time for me.
Okay, excellent.
I'm a rookie, and I'm a rookie in politics as well.
Well, you're working hard in this campaign. I know that. I know you're going door to door. I'm impressed by your candidacy. Like I said, I disclosed that I am a Tim Cole supporter, even if I have no role of any sort in your campaign. Welcome today. And and don't be afraid to correct us if anything we said was wrong up to this point, because you were backstage, you were able to watch us. Did we tee things up correctly at this point?
Yeah, you heard what I said, Tim. You want to kind of add into the history here?
Yeah, and I'll go back a little bit. About a week ago, one of my opponents, because I have two opponents, Kristen Dart, she had a press conference, and then she accused me of putting innocent Muslims in jail. And to bolster her claims, she inappropriately took a statement from a judge in New York, in Newburgh, from another case, and tried to apply it here to the case in Albany. And that was just, unfortunate, to hear that. So, I'm going to run a professional, be professional, run a campaign with dignity. But I'm going to correct the record when the record is wrong, and that's what my intention is going to be, moving forward.
Good for you, Tim. I interviewed you last week on Saratoga Report, and you clarified some things, or you actually did correct the record. Could you go into some of those things that you're being accused of and are just blatantly false?
Yes, absolutely. So just so everyone knows, I was a case agent on the local terrorism case. It was United States of America versus Yassin Aref and Mohammed Hussein. They were co-conspirators, and how it works, federal court's a little different than state court, but they got indicted by a grand jury. They went to trial in the United States District Court. They were found guilty by unanimous jury. That case gets reviewed by the United States Second Circuit Court of Appeals, who strongly affirmed the decision. And just to compare and contrast myself to Kristen Dart, what she said about the judge in another case, I want to tell you what both judges said in my case. And I'm going to read a quote because I want to make sure that the record is factual. So the district court Judge McAvoy, said this: the FBI had certain suspicions about Mr. Aref, good and valid suspicions. And then I want to make another comment or relay the quote from Judge Homer at Aref's detention hearing. And it says, Mr. Aref espouses and has adopted the goals of terrorist organizations and has had an ongoing relationship with terrorist organizations. And I'm going to tell you why they said that. United States military was in Iraq at war, and they at 3 terrorist encampments they found pocket litter, and they found Yassin Aref's name, and they found his Albany telephone number, and that's at 3 separate encampments, terrorist encampments. Then
I was unaware of that. Thank you.
Yeah, and then as the investigation continued, we conducted a federal search warrant at Yassin Aref's house in Albany on 44 West Street. Even though this case was 20 years ago, I was a case agent. I have a pretty good command of the facts. We did a search warrant at 44 West Street, and we found his personal diary where he kept very detailed notes. And he memorialized meetings with numerous terrorist organizations, leaders of Hamas, leaders of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. They are designated terrorist organizations. And what that means is, just to give you more details, the United States government will look at information about terrorist organizations, and they have a committee and they will designate them. And then are designated terrorist organizations. So Hamas, Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. And then he also met with terrorists like Khalid al-Harbi. And that is really troubling to me. And I want to talk a little bit about Khalid al-Harbi and why it should be troubling for all of us. You know, we just remembered the many folks that paid the ultimate price during our 9/11 attacks. Well, after those attacks, Osama bin Laden made a video. He made the video with Khalid al-Harbi together, and they were on Al Jazeera, and they were laughing about how many Americans were killed here in our country. And that one of the persons, so it was Osama bin Laden and Khalid al-Harbi, and a ref in his notebook says, "I met with Khalid al-Harbi," right? And he's a true holy warrior, a true mujahid. So he has this support for, like the judge said, he has a support for terrorists and terrorist organizations. You know, he also met with a leader of designated terrorist organization, the founder of Ansar al-Islam, by the name of Mullah Kraker. And then, in addition to being charged with terrorism counts and convicted on terrorism counts, he was also convicted on lying to the FBI. So when I interviewed him, after I arrested him, I said, "Do you know Mullah Kraker?" And he said, "Yes, I know Mullah Kraker. He's a terrorist, but I've never met him." And then we went at trial, and we proved from his own writings that he met with Mullah Kraker, and they went outside and prayed to the eclipse. Then we put his wife on the stand. His wife actually testified against him, how she cooked dinner overseas in Iraq with him and Mullah Kraker while they were outside praying to the moon. So the bottom line is, we had all this information, overwhelming evidence. And I said before, the judges in my case here, if you take Judge McAvoy, you take Judge Homer, you take the 3 appellate court judges, that's 5 federal judges who have affirmed this case in some shape or form. That is very, very different from us putting innocent Muslims in jail. That narrative is not true, and it's not correct.
So to be clear, this was never overturned. This was never successfully appealed.
That's correct.
Yeah. Tim, you froze up on my screen here. Adam, can you see? Is it frozen up on your screen?
Yeah, it's frozen. It's frozen there. Tim, you want to try to maybe hop out and hop back in?
All right.
Use that same link, Tim, and we'll bring you back in a minute.
All right.
I'm going to remove.
And Dan, while you're doing that, I just want to talk a little bit about kind of precedents and how this pertains to what we're talking about now in national news, and that is the indictments and the charges against the former president Donald Trump. This is the clearest way to show that the justice system is not biased. We have judge and juries for this matter of fact to be the judge and jury of any potential bias. These convictions were tried before a judge. Were they jury courts or jury trials or a judge trial?
Yeah, it's a jury trial, like Adam said, and it's unanimous. And it's a little different. Federal court's different. As an FBI agent, you not only are the case agent, but you then sit at the counsel table during trial, the entire trial. I testified frequently during that case as well.
What I find, if this was a case where, like, I'll liken it to like a murder case where all of a sudden 15 years later DNA evidence comes and exonerates. This hasn't happened here. There's been no exoneration. This is just an allegation by people against you, really, Tim, that are using an allegation that really has been unproven. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. Look, the theory is absurd that that the FBI has the ability to put innocent people in jail is absurd. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, and we really see that from both sides. Depending on where our federal law enforcement is going, you'll have both sides claiming that it's biased, or it's got to be tough sometimes just to be a good decent agent going out there to do your job when you have the MAGA Republicans screaming that you're weaponized. And then you have what we're seeing now, the far left, screaming that, hey, you must be guilty of Islamophobia, or you must be racist if you're putting people in jail. But again, this is why we have judge and juries, and the fact that this has been upheld by multiple judges, the fact that these men were found guilty by a jury should without any evidence that there was any wrongdoing happened. For me, it really kind of shows where we're at as a society now, where we're at 2002, when our nation had just suffered one of its worst attacks on its soil in its history, and guys out there trying to find these Islamic terrorists were heroes. We've come a long way, unfortunately, and I don't think in a good way.
Tim, can you? Oh, sorry. If you want to respond to that, and then I.
No, go ahead, Dan. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Can you touch on tonight? What's going on? Your role in it, or the role they're actually largely boxing you out, from what I understand. Could you touch on what's going on tonight at Cafe Lena?
Yeah. So my understanding, and I had discussions with Kathy Manley, who was, just going back to the ref case. They had two of the finest defense attorneys in the area, Terry Kinlan and Kevin Lurbrand, represented Aref and Hussein. And at the time, Kathy Manley helped, Terry Kinlan, and then she eventually took over after Aref was convicted and worked on the case. So I talked to Kathy, and I didn't know they were going to have this program. There's a program tonight, or a forum tonight. It's a film, I believe, at Cafe Lena. And I found out about it by happenstance, and I called her and said, could I be part of it? Could I be part of the panel? Can I speak? Just to give, to be constructive and to listen to people's concerns and to give an opposing viewpoint. And she said, no, you cannot be part of the panel. And I think tonight the idea is they're going to show a movie, and I'm sure it will be a pro-Aref movie, an anti-FBI movie, for an hour and a half. And then they're going to no longer have a panel, but they're going to let the panel give brief statements and then open it up to the public. So I hope I just at least have a few minutes to talk tonight, to at least give the opposing view. And I think that's just basic fairness.
I said this before we brought you in. I give you credit for showing up there. I know a lot of candidates that would steer 20 miles clear of Cafe Lena tonight. It kind of shows the kind of candidate you are. And again, I'm a supporter. I'm voting for you, Tim. So again, I'm going to acknowledge my bias, but it's, I just see you as a great candidate. I'm raising my family in this city. I'm comforted by the fact that I hope you are become our public safety commissioner. And so that's what I wanted to say on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, Dan. Going back to what Adam said earlier, it is difficult to be in law enforcement and have people to continue to put false narratives out about you. That's very difficult. So I know going into politics, that this information, false narratives were going to be put out against me, but I'm happy to stand tall, and I'm happy to stand and correct the facts. You can't do that in the FBI, right? You can't talk. So in a lot of ways, I'm happy to get the facts out.
Let's switch gears for a second, Tim. So you're running for a position on a city council that will have a Democratic mayor, a Democrat commissioner of accounts, a Democrat commissioner of finance, a Democrat commissioner of public works. Pardon me, the mayor. Nope, the mayor. I'm wrong. The mayor's a competitive race, but the accounts, finance, and public works are not being contested, right? So right there, regardless of what happens on the mayor's, even if a Republican or an independent wins, you're going to be facing a Democratic city council. Do you feel that you will be able to work with people from an opposing who ran on a different line than you?
Yeah, and for me, I'm really a centrist. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm endorsed by the Republican Party. I'm endorsed by One Saratoga, which is mostly moderate Democrats. And I think if we govern and we just govern and we speak to each other with respect and dignity and facts, we can get things accomplished regardless of party affiliation. And that's really what I intend to do. I really hope that this will be a way to stop the tribal warfare in politics. Especially, we should be able to do this at the local level. Our city has some challenges, and we need to all of us need to come together to fix those challenges.
Thank you, Tim. Adam, do you have anything more for Tim?
No, nope. Tim, I commend you for showing up tonight and trying to, set the record straight. I don't know. It's you have these ideologue political camps that I don't know if you ever can convince MAGA otherwise. I don't know if you can ever convince the far left otherwise. But I commend you for showing up tonight, and we wish you luck in your upcoming election.
Great. Thank you very much for having me on the program. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Tim. Take care. Enjoy the day. I know you'll be working. Take care. Okay, good. I think we're doing the best job we can to, getting the story out there, acknowledging our biases and so forth, and trying to give all sides a voice.
I'm a little I don't know what the word is, upset with Cafe Lena that they would enter the political arena like this. They're a community organization that really should be apolitical, and this is really, however they want to frame this is not political. This is absolutely political, and I think it really takes them down a couple of notches in my book as far as what they do and what they stand for in this community. If they're going to be, giving platforms that are running really biased, essentially campaign videos for candidates in this city.
Yeah, reading Sarah Craig's, their executive director's comments in the Times Union, it seems like they were caught completely off guard by it. I believe that. I think if they could do it again, they'd do a deeper dive. Well, I don't think that was intentional. I hope not. They could listen. They can pull out of. They could have said, "Listen, now that we know the facts, this is now getting in the political arena." They could have easily done that. They chose not to. I'm not going to give them a pass. Well, there might have been a contract. There might have been a contract involved. I don't know the specifics, but yeah, I understand your point. I understand your point. I'm just probably have a bias towards Cafe Lena.
Dude, it's for me. It's really it's a further dividing our community that's already polarized. In institutions like Cafe Lena are supposed to be something that's supposed to bring us together, not pull us apart. But this getting involved, throwing their hat in the political arena is really disheartening.
What I can say is I hope Cafe Lena Cafe Lena doesn't have something like that again. Again, I do think they were caught off guard by this. I don't think this is what they expected, but I don't know. In all fairness, I don't know.
All right. Well, so there was a city council meeting last night.
Largely, not completely, but largely uneventful, right? Some speakers were interesting, and I lost my internet for a little bit, so I missed some of the speakers. Then I did get back on and caught most of the rest of the meeting. I think you caught some of the meeting early. Is that correct?
Yeah, just to go over some things I found interesting was we talked about how the road that kind of borders the high school that was used by high school students, it was moved to 2-hour parking to discourage high school students from parking there. You had some neighbors show up last night who were kind of caught off guard by this, were not in favor of this, didn't know why the city was doing this. This is one of those, I think, for the city council, you're darned if you do, you're darned if you don't. I can see both neighbors' points. I think my personal belief is, listen, if there was parking, if high school kids were parking on that street when you bought that house, you knew what you signed up for. But that was something interesting. There was a community group that's formed primarily over truck traffic on Van Dam. This truck routes through our city is a huge issue that, unfortunately, the longer we've kicked it down the road, the harder it gets, because the more communities there are around these routes, because the trucks got to go somewhere. We can't stop the trucks from driving. But where are those routes? So that's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that. There were certainly some BLM activists there, sharing with Jim their opposition for him and what he did, which, again, I think you and I think what he did showed some leadership.
Hold on a minute, Adam. I've got like some sort of, holy cow, I think they just did a bombing run over me over here in the Woodlands. Wow. That was a military plane, and that was low.
Really?
Holy cow. I've never seen that here.
Could you identify what type of plane was it?
It looked like a military cargo, C-130
like a C-130
type. I mean, it was low. I don't, obviously doing training runs, but
it sounded, though. I've watched a lot of videos and of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine right now. And usually that sound is then followed by some kind of explosion. So I was kind of bracing for impact a little bit there.
Well, yeah. Thank God we don't realize how lucky we are in American as Americans here that are reasonably safe. If I was a little quicker on my game, I would have grabbed my laptop and held it to the sky. But I was so in awe with this noise getting louder and louder, realizing this was a low plane. Anyway, moving on.
I'm pretty sure you ducked there, Dan. I think you kind of did one of these.
Hey, regarding last night's meeting, I did see the complaints, if you will, almost the accusations of discriminating against school students and treat it was some harsh accusations. And we saw earlier this summer, maybe it was earlier this year, a lot of hearings on the parking there. So there was plenty of notice about the changes they were doing there. And these residents came in and say, we were caught off guard. We didn't know this was going to happen so fast. And I didn't think it happened so fast.
Speaking of bias, maybe I'm a little biased because I got a tenant of that. Well, you got young kids too. I don't want to have to drop them off at school. I want to be able to take a car and park somewhere. So
I haven't thought that far ahead.
The one other thing, and we're missing our resident city council expert, Robin Dalton, but Jim Montanino, proposed this ordinance, which he labeled 666, which again, at this point, sometimes we don't know if Commissioner Montanino is just trolling the city or what.
Wait, you got to slow down though. Explain some more of that, of what exactly happened, what he proposed, because there's a story there, right?
Yeah, exactly. So essentially what he proposed, and I'm going to do my best of not being as in tune to this as some people are, but a priority system for speaking at public meetings to residents of the city of Saratoga, which is interesting. It definitely has some problems with it that involve how do you prove you're a resident of Saratoga? Visitors, you might live right outside the Saratoga limit, but does that mean you can't speak? You visit our city, does that mean you don't have so it's kind of a controversial thing.
Very controversial, especially because it's coming from Jim Montanino.
Yeah.
But also the substance of it is controversial.
Yeah. And if it falls in party lines, it's definitely it could be the left is against this. The right would be for it because you would need identification to prove. Anyway, but the fact that it didn't go anywhere, which is interesting, because I've talked to previous commissioners who said they would not bring something to the table if they didn't have a good feeling that it would pass. I don't think in any realm Commissioner Montanino thought this would pass. I don't know why he numbered it 666, which was again completely going to number it at ABC or lettered at ABC. I think if we wanted to, or 123 for that matter. But he proposed this. It got shot down, and the wheels, the wheels of government churn on.
But it was a little more circuitous than that, though, right? He proposed a public hearing for it, and almost pro forma, they approved the public hearing. An hour later, Commissioner Moran, as the meeting was just about to end, Mayor Kim was about to ask for a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Moran jumped in and said, no, I want to get a motion in, and caught everybody off guard a little bit. It was almost like one of those, like a hockey game. The team's down 2 goals. There's 30 seconds left. You're like, this is over. You're getting up. You're walking away from the TV, and they all of a sudden it's a game again. And all of a sudden there was an issue again, and it was hot. Commissioner Moran, as he can often be, was fiery about this. He was accusatory towards Commissioner Montanino, had some venom about him as well as the issue itself. And Tony Izzo had to come in and give a legal analysis of whether a hearing, just the setting of a hearing, required a board vote. He gave some history, but he really didn't give a true legal analysis, just really past practice. And then at one point, Mayor Kim said, well, I've heard, I'm paraphrasing here, but in what I took it to be was Mayor Kim said, I've heard enough. Too bad, so sad. We're going to undo this hearing. We're going to not have this hearing. I think they held a vote on rescinding the earlier action to have the hearing. I heard 4 ayes. I would assume Commissioner Montanino was a nay, but I didn't hear it. And that was like a little bit of ugliness at the end of a meeting that I thought was over.
Now, on the scale of ugliness, though, that one's that's just sometimes the ugly trolling's a little bit funny. I think from all sides, I'll give that one a little bit funny.
The 666 though, like that is bizarre.
That's If it wasn't bizarre, it would be funny, but it is bizarre, huh?
I don't like, what is Jim Montanino doing? Is he resigned to the fact that he can't win and he's just throwing bombs on the way out the door? I don't know. I don't know.
You heard, okay, let's talk about the tape. There was a tape that came out of Mayor Kim,
Yes.
Screaming. And again, I am going to give Mayor Kim a little bit pass on this. And I know a lot of people aren't, but he essentially felt, I mean, if I felt my family was in danger and I felt somebody could be doing more to help them and they weren't, I'd lose my chicken shit too, pardon the language, but just, and so I don't think it's behavior becoming of a mayor, but it's not the most egregious thing I think I've seen in the city council do. But Mayor Kim just said, Jim, you're going down with me. That's what he said in this recorded phone call.
We should explain that issue a little bit, so everyone may not be privy to either the old part of the story or the newest part of the story, right? There was Mayor Kim received, and apparently a family member of his received what he described, and I think accurately so, as a veiled threat back in the springtime, I believe, of just resign now. It will be better for you in the end. And listen, if you're in a position like his, I recognize what you're saying. You're sort of giving him a pass on this one. If it was the only time he ever did that, I might, but he loses his temper a few times. But I get it. I do agree with you, Adam, that this time threats to the family.
One of his children was contacted too.
Okay. Yes. And that is really, really off-putting, to say the least, right? It's downright to somewhere maybe more towards scary, right? When your family's involved and so forth. And he was not happy. That's the problem with this city council and really with Jim Montanino on it. I don't like the way, at times anyway, he's been treated by others. But he brings it on himself. This is a very dysfunctional council that they're tape recording each other. They can't even help themselves out. They can't have some professional courtesy. Like, hey, I got my family, I've been accused of, I received a threat, or at least a veiled threat. My family member received a veiled threat. Can you have some concern and help me out? No, go F yourself. Was kind of, or go stand in line and make a complaint like every other citizen. There should be some sort of a brotherhood, sisterhood, camaraderie. I got your back. Hey, I'll fight with you at the table all the time. But when your family's threatened, I got your back. Yeah. And there's none of that there. And I'm going to tape record you when you call me. That's really bad. This council needs to change.
Local politics has turned into a blood sport now. Could have been that way for a while, but it just doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be this. I'm gonna, you chicken shit, I'm gonna take you down. It's over the top. But in all fairness, it does give us stuff to talk about.
It brings viewers.
Yeah, exactly.
Folks, if you're commenting and you're not getting responded to, it's not intentional. We're missing Robin here, and she's the tech guru for this. And the fact that Adam and I got our faces on camera here was a major accomplishment on our part. So if you're commenting, I apologize that we're not responding, because you can comment on many different platforms. And the one that usually gets commented on, I believe, is Robin's Facebook. So
I got one of the comment. I got a couple comments here. This is true. I did make a mistake before that. John Safford he's a Republican.
Safford, right, without a T, I believe. Safford.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's running for mayor. So certainly Commissioner or Mayor Kim is not guaranteed to be on that council like Commissioner Moran or Commissioner Shangvi would be. And then Mike AB also comments that Mayor Kim never reported the email to the police until after the blow up. Police determined there was no threat. The threat to his family was never reported to the police. So that's interesting. So if there was a threat that Kim was referring to, it never got reported to the police.
Okay, fair enough. I'm glad. Thank you, commenter, for clarifying that. I think I knew that at the time and just forgot that.
Yeah.
If you recall, there was a video of the interaction of the blow up between Mayor Kim and Deputy Commissioner Titu. That was, I'm guessing that was back in April, May.
Yeah. All right, Dan. Cheers and jeers.
I do have a a couple cheers. A quick one. I always cheer or jeer my Buffalo Bills. They did do well last week, very well. Josh Allen played like Josh Allen should play. Just a quick one there, because I know not all of you are Bills fans and not all of you are football fans. But just, I'm from Buffalo. I've been suffering for decades. So hope I get a little bit of empathy out of that one. A big cheer here to Saratoga and the Saratoga Regional YMCA. They're holding a fall foliage ride for bicyclists to go, I believe it's 30, 50, or 75 miles in the foliage around Saratoga Springs, including the battlefield. And this is more than just a small bike event. This is something that could be big in future years, and it could be big this year. I have not caught up with Ed Lindner up until I spoke to him probably 3 weeks ago on this. It's October 7th and 8th. If you know somebody or you want to post this on your social media, it's on What's Going On Saratoga. It's one of the top pinned posts on What's Going On Saratoga Facebook page. If you know some bicyclists, you want to bring some people to the Spa City to make this inaugural event, the kickoff event, which 5 years from now may be huge. They may have to cap it. So I'm just a fan of Biketoga. And they're gonna. It's a great event. I'm not much of a bicyclist these days, but so I'm probably not up for 50 miles, especially with my old bike. But one of these years I would like to do it. So those are my two cheers.
All right, 2 cheers. All right. So my cheer goes to. Oh, look at you. All right.
Oh, I wrote that up. Forgot to post it.
Yeah, my cheer goes to the Saratoga. And this is just a silly one that nobody really cares about me, but the Saratoga Springs varsity boys soccer team. They have a potential All-American striker on their team who's just amazing. They have a highly acclaimed goalkeeper who's amazing. Watching these kids play is fantastic. My son, who's starting in the school at the 7th grade level, is the goalkeeper for the modified team. They had their first home game, and the varsity boys showed up. And it was just amazing to see the varsity boys there standing with the 7th graders. It meant a lot to the parents and to the kids. So to all the parents of the varsity players, the coach of the varsity players, you raised some good boys, and boy, can they play soccer. They're worth going to check out a game. My jeer, I already kind of jeered Cafe Lena for throwing their hat in the political arena. But again, it goes to the Times Union and their coverage of Tim Cole. I just real quick want to, the references earlier where Wendy Libetard stated that this documentary is about a 9/11 sting that entrapped Muslims, and that's what she said. And I just want to remind Wendy what the fundamental pillars for journalism are. One is accuracy, which that is not accurate. That's you can't. The second one is objectivity. And that statement is not accurate, nor is it objective. Journalists should strive to be impartial and objective to their reporting. They should avoid bias, personal opinions, and conflict of interest that could compromise the integrity of their work. And for me, this is just because this is now propaganda. And I don't know why, but it really strikes a scary chord with me when journalists can really put their spin on things. And at a national level, it happens all the time. I speak out against it, but I think I can speak out about it louder and with a bigger platform on a local level. And I think the Times Union really is really kind of selling their soul, their morals, their values, their ethics, their dignity for clicks. And I think it's really unfortunate, and it does this neighborhood, this city, and this area no favors. So
I agree with you on that, Adam. And how did that get past the editors? And let me just read it again. I think you read it. I want to read it once again. I have it on my screen here. If she would have simply qualified this allegation, it would have been fine. But she wrote a discussion of a documentary about a post 9/11 sting that entrapped Muslims is being. Now, if she says that some say entrapped Muslims or that some allege whatever, some sort of qualification, but without any proof, and you talked about some national issues before, without any proof at all that I can see, that the Times Union said without qualification that it entrapped Muslims. I have a huge problem with that. There's nothing in the article that gives any proof that I can see. That was poor, and that got past. She wrote the article, but that also got past editors, and that shame on the shame. I agree, Adam. Well done.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got now. Dan, it was nice having you. We'll be back with Robin next week. In the meantime, stay charming, Saratoga.
Thanks for watching, folks.